Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the weight of unspoken emotions hanging in the air? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and understood their pain without them saying a single word? Have you ever felt completely drained after being around certain people, as if they'd somehow absorbed your energy? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you might be part of an incredibly rare group. According to Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, only about 1% of all souls develop what he called the empathic gift, a profound ability that goes far beyond simple compassion or kindness. But here's what makes this truly fascinating. Jung believed this wasn't just a personality trait. It was a calling, a burden, and perhaps most intriguingly, a superpower that most people who possess it don't even realize they have. We're going to dive deep into Jung's theories on empathy, explore the signs that you might be one of these rare individuals, and uncover why this ability is both a blessing and a curse. We'll also reveal the hidden dangers that come with this gift, and most importantly, how to harness it without losing yourself in the process. So if you've ever felt different, misunderstood, or like you experienced the world on a foul, completely different frequency than everyone else, this video might just change everything you thought you knew about yourself. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Who was Carl Jung? Before we explore this rare empathic ability, we need to understand the brilliant mind who uncovered it. Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875 in Switzerland, and he would go on to become one of the founding fathers of analytical psychology. But Jung wasn't just another academic sitting in an ivory tower. He was a man obsessed with understanding the depths of the human psyche, the parts we hide, the parts we deny, and the parts we don't even know exist. Jung worked closely with Sigmund Freud in the early 1900s, but the two eventually parted ways because Jung saw something Freud couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge. While Freud focused on the personal unconscious and our individual experiences, Jung discovered something much larger, the collective unconscious. This was revolutionary. Jung proposed that beneath our personal memories and traumas, there exists a deeper layer of consciousness that we all share. It's filled with universal symbols, archetypes, and primordial images that have been passed down through generations of human experience. But here's where it gets interesting for our discussion today. Jung believed that certain individuals had the ability to tap into this collective unconscious more easily than others. They could sense not just their own inner world, but the inner worlds of others. They could feel the weight of emotions that didn't belong to them. They could perceive the invisible threads connecting all human consciousness. Jung called these individuals empaths, though his definition went much deeper than what we typically understand that word to mean today. And according to his research and clinical observations spanning over 6 decades, only about 1% of the population develops this ability to its full potential. Chapter 2. What is true empathy? Now, let's be clear about something right from the start. We're not talking about the kind of empathy that gets thrown around casually in everyday conversation. We're not talking about simply being nice, or caring about other people, or being a good listener. Those are wonderful qualities, but they're not what Jung meant by this rare empathic ability. True empathy, in Jung's framework, is the ability to merge with another person's psyche, to temporarily dissolve the boundaries of your own ego and experience reality through someone else's eyes, heart, and soul. It's not sympathy, feeling sorry for someone from the outside looking in. It's not even cognitive empathy, intellectually understanding someone's perspective. It's something far more profound and, frankly, far more dangerous. Jung described it as a kind of psychological permeability. Imagine your consciousness as a house. For most people, this house has solid walls, locked doors, and clearly defined boundaries. You experience your emotions inside your house, and other people experience theirs in their own houses. But for the true empath, these walls are more like membranes, permeable, porous, constantly allowing information to flow in and out. You don't just understand what someone else is feeling. You feel it. In your body. In your bones. As if their emotions have become your own. Jung witnessed this phenomenon repeatedly in his clinical practice. He worked with patients who would walk into a room and immediately take on the emotional state of everyone present. They couldn't distinguish between their own feelings and those of others. They would leave conversations feeling exhausted, drained, sometimes even physically ill, because they had absorbed the psychological content of the people they'd been with. And here's what fascinated Jung most. These individuals weren't weak or broken. In fact, many of them possessed an extraordinary psychological depth and wisdom. They could see through masks and facades instantly. They could sense deception, hidden pain, and unexpressed truth with startling accuracy. But this gift came at an enormous cost. Let me share a story from Jung's casework that illustrates this perfectly. Jung once treated a woman, we'll call her Anna, who came to him in a state of complete psychological exhaustion. Anna was a nurse, and she was excellent at her job. Her patients loved her because she seemed to understand exactly what they needed before they even asked. But Anna was dying inside. She couldn't sleep. She was having panic attacks. She felt like she was drowning in a sea of other people's pain, and she didn't know how to stop it. Jung realized that Anna wasn't suffering from her own trauma or neurosis. She was suffering from what he called psychic infection. She had no boundaries, no filters, no way to protect herself from the constant bombardment of emotional energy she encountered every day. This is the double-edged sword of true empathy. It grants you incredible insight and the ability to help others in profound ways. But without proper understanding and training, it can destroy you. Chapter 3. The signs you might be one of the 1%. So how do you know if you possess this rare ability? Let me walk you through the signs that Jung identified, and I want you to pay attention to how many of these resonate with your own experience. Sign 1. You experience emotional overwhelm in crowds. Do you avoid shopping malls, concerts, or busy public places because they leave you feeling completely drained? This isn't about being introverted or socially anxious, though those might be present too. This is about feeling like you're being bombarded by invisible waves of emotion that hit you from every direction. Jung explained that true empaths have what he called thin psychic skin. In crowded environments, you're not just dealing with your own thoughts and feelings, you're unconsciously picking up on the emotional states of dozens or even hundreds of people around you. Your nervous system goes into overload trying to process all of this information. If you've ever felt like you needed to recover for hours or even days after being in a crowded environment, this is a major indicator. Sign 2. You know things you shouldn't know. This is one of the most striking signs. Have you ever met someone for the first time and immediately knew something deep about them, their pain, their secrets, their true nature, without any logical reason for knowing it? Maybe you've walked into a room where everyone is smiling and acting cheerful, but you instantly knew something was wrong. And later, you found out there had been a huge argument just before you arrived. Jung believed this wasn't coincidence or lucky guessing. Empaths have access to information that bypasses normal sensory channels. You're reading the unconscious signals, the micro-expressions, the energy that people emit but try to hide. Sign 3. People are magnetically drawn to you. Here's something that might surprise you. If you're a true empath, strangers probably tell you their life stories all the time. You could be standing in line at the grocery store, and within 5 minutes, The person next to you is sharing their deepest struggles. You could be on a plane, and your seatmate is crying and telling you things they've never told their therapist. This happens because people unconsciously sense that you can hold space for their pain. Your energy signals to them, "You're safe here. I won't judge you. I can handle the weight of what you're carrying." But here's the problem. This means you become an emotional dumping ground. People offload their pain onto you, often feel better, and walk away, leaving you holding all of that heavy energy. SIGN 4. You can't watch violence or cruelty. Do you have to leave the room during violent movie scenes? Do news stories about suffering haunt you for days? Can you not even watch shows where people are humiliated or embarrassed? For true empaths, this isn't about being sensitive or squeamish. You're actually experiencing a neurological response. Mirror neurons in your brain fire as if you're the one experiencing the violence or humiliation. Your body doesn't distinguish between watching, suffering, and experiencing it directly. Jung noted that many of his empathic patients had to carefully curate what they exposed themselves to because their nervous systems couldn't handle the vicarious trauma. SIGN 5. Animals and children trust you instantly. Have you noticed that animals and small children are immediately comfortable with you? They approach you without fear, even if they're typically shy or anxious around strangers. Jung believed this happened because animals and young children haven't yet learned to hide their instincts behind social masks. They can sense your empathic nature energetically, and they recognize you as someone safe. This is actually one of the more beautiful aspects of this gift. You have a natural ability to communicate beyond words, to offer comfort through pure presence. SIGN 6. You feel physical symptoms around certain people. This is a big one. Do you ever feel sudden headaches, nausea, fatigue, or body aches when you're around specific individuals, symptoms that disappear as soon as you leave their presence? True empaths don't just absorb emotional energy. They absorb physical energy too. If you're around someone who is sick, stressed, or in pain, your body might literally take on their symptoms. Jung documented cases where empathic individuals would develop mysterious illnesses that doctors couldn't explain, only to discover that they were unconsciously mirroring the physical condition of someone close to them. SIGN 7. You need excessive alone time. If you require significant periods of solitude to recharge, and I mean really need it, not just prefer it, this is a classic sign. For empaths, alone time isn't a luxury or a preference. It's a necessity for survival. You need space to process all the emotional and energetic information you've absorbed, to remember who you are, and to separate your own feelings from those of others. Jung once said, "The empath must retreat into the cave of solitude not to escape the world, but to save themselves from being consumed by it." If you need hours or even days alone after social interactions, and people in your life don't understand why, you might be experiencing this empathic necessity for energetic recalibration. SIGN 8. You can sense the energy of spaces. When you walk into a room, can you immediately tell if something bad happened there? Can you feel if a place has good energy or bad energy? This isn't superstition. Jung believed that emotional events leave psychic imprints on physical spaces. Most people can't detect these imprints, but empaths can. You're picking up on the residual, emotional energy that has soaked into the environment. So how many of these signs resonated with you? If you identified with 5 or more, there's a strong possibility you possess this rare empathic ability that Jung described. But before you decide whether this is a blessing or a curse, we need to understand why this ability develops in the first place. Because according to Jung, it's not random. There's always a reason. Chapter 4. Why do some people develop this ability? One of the most profound questions Jung explored was this: why do some souls develop this empathic gift while most others don't? And what he discovered might surprise you, or it might explain everything you've been through. The trauma connection. Jung found that the majority of true empaths he worked with had experienced significant trauma, especially in childhood. But here's the crucial part. It wasn't the trauma itself that created the empathic ability. It was the survival mechanism they developed in response to the trauma. Imagine a child growing up in an unpredictable or emotionally volatile environment. Maybe there's a parent with addiction, mental illness, or rage issues. Maybe the home environment is chaotic and unsafe. That child needs to develop a superpower to survive, the ability to read the emotional temperature of their environment at all times. They learn to sense when danger is coming before it arrives. They become hypervigilant to the emotional states of the adults around them, constantly scanning for threats. This child learns to read micro-expressions, to detect shifts in energy, to feel the emotional climate before anyone says a word. This isn't a conscious skill they're learning, it's a neurological adaptation. Their developing brain is literally rewiring itself to become an emotional radar system. And here's what's so bittersweet about this. That survival mechanism, that trauma-forged ability to read others, becomes so deeply ingrained that it persists long after the danger has passed. The child grows up, maybe leaves the traumatic environment, but the empathic antenna remains hyperactive. Jung called this the wound that becomes the Kehause gift. The very thing that hurt you becomes the thing that allows you to help others. The soul calling theory, but Jung didn't believe trauma was the only path to empathic development. He also believed in what he called the individuated empath, someone whose soul was called to this ability as part of their life purpose. Some souls incarnate with this gift already woven into their psyche. They're meant to be bridges between the conscious and unconscious worlds. They're meant to be healers, guides, and witnesses to human suffering. Jung believed these individuals were often drawn to helping professions, not because they consciously chose these careers, but because their souls pulled them in that direction. Therapists, nurses, social workers, teachers, artists who work with deep emotional themes, many of them, Jung observed, possessed this rare empathic ability. The healer's wound is not a flaw in the healer's character. It is the very portal through which healing energy flows. One cannot guide others through darkness unless one has navigated darkness themselves, the genetic and spiritual component. Jung also noted that empathic abilities often ran in families. He believed there might be both a genetic component and what he called a spiritual inheritance, patterns of consciousness passed down through generations. Have you noticed that in your family, there might be one person in each generation who everyone turns to with their problems? The grandmother who always knew when something was wrong. The aunt who could read people like books. The sibling who felt everything too deeply. Jung suggested this wasn't coincidence. Some family lines carry this trait, and it manifests in specific individuals who are, for whatever reason, suited to bear it. The activation process. But here's something crucial that Jung emphasized: having the potential for empathic ability isn't the same as having it fully activated. Many people have the seeds of this gift, but it only fully develops when certain conditions are met. This could be a major life crisis that cracks open your psyche, a near-death experience or profound loss, an intentional spiritual awakening practice, working through deep trauma with a skilled therapist, an encounter with someone who recognizes and mirrors your gift back to you. Jung believed that the universe, or the self, as he called it, would activate this ability in someone when they were ready to bear its weight and use it wisely. Activating this gift prematurely, before someone has developed adequate boundaries and self-knowledge, could be psychologically devastating. This is why Jung was actually cautious about encouraging people to develop empathic abilities. He saw it as something that should unfold naturally, as part of a person's unique individuation process, their journey toward becoming their authentic self. Chapter 5. The Dark Side of Empathy. Now we need to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough, the shadow side of this gift. Because make no mistake, this ability can destroy you if you don't understand how to protect yourself. The empath's sacrifice. Jung noticed a disturbing pattern among his empathic patients. Many of them were slowly losing themselves. They had become so focused on feeling and healing others that they had no idea who they were anymore. Their own desires, needs, and emotions had become so entangled with everyone else's that they couldn't distinguish what was truly theirs. The empath's sacrifice. The unconscious tendency to martyr yourself on the altar of everyone else's needs. You might recognize this pattern. You're always the one people call in crisis, but when you're struggling, there's no one to call. You give and give and give until you're completely depleted, and then you feel guilty for needing to rest. You solve everyone else's problems but can't seem to solve your own. Jung warned that this wasn't virtue. It was a form of self-destruction masquerading as compassion. Narcissists and energy vampires. Here's something that will probably resonate deeply if you're an empath. You attract narcissists and energy vampires like moths to a flame. Jung understood this dynamic perfectly. He explained that narcissistic individuals unconsciously seek out empaths because empaths provide an endless supply of the attention, validation, and emotional energy that narcissists crave. You see the potential in them. You see the wounded child beneath the toxic behavior. You think you can save them, heal them, love them into wholeness. But here's the brutal truth. Jung wanted empaths to understand. You cannot heal someone who is unconsciously committed to staying wounded. You cannot love someone into self-awareness if they refuse to do their own inner work. Meanwhile, they will drain every ounce of energy you have. They will take and take and take, giving nothing back except occasional crumbs of affection to keep you hooked. Jung saw countless empaths trapped in relationships with narcissistic partners, friends, or family members. The empath's gift of seeing the good in everyone becomes their greatest vulnerability. The illness of absorption. Remember earlier when I mentioned that empaths can take on the physical symptoms of others? Jung documented cases where this became a serious health issue. He worked with empathic individuals who developed chronic illnesses that doctors couldn't explain. Mysterious pain, autoimmune conditions, chronic fatigue, digestive issues, symptoms that seem to have no physical cause. Upon deeper investigation, Jung often found that these individuals were unconsciously absorbing and storing the pain of others in their own bodies. Their physical form had become a repository for collective suffering. This is what Jung meant when he said empathy without boundaries is a form of self-harm. The loss of authentic self. Perhaps the most insidious danger is what Jung called the chameleon effect. Empaths are so good at sensing what others need and adapting to fit any situation that they can lose touch with their authentic self entirely. You become a mirror for others, but when you look in the mirror yourself, no one is there. You might find yourself thinking, I don't know what I actually like. I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am when I'm alone. Jung believed this was the ultimate tragedy of the undeveloped empath, to have the ability to see into everyone else's soul while losing sight of your own. Depression and existential despair. Jung also noted that empaths were particularly susceptible to what he called cosmic sadness, a deep, pervasive sense of grief about the state of the world and human suffering. Because you feel so much, because you're so aware of pain everywhere, it can become overwhelming. You might find yourself thinking, How can I be happy when there's so much suffering in the world? How can I celebrate when others are in pain? This can lead to a kind of existential depression that's different from clinical depression. It's not about chemical imbalance. It's about emotional and spiritual overload. But here's where Jung's work becomes so valuable. He didn't just identify these dangers. He mapped out a path for empaths to reclaim their power, set boundaries, and transform this curse into the blessing it was meant to be. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. Chapter 6. Jung's Guide to Protecting and Harnessing Your Empathic Gift. Everything we've discussed so far has been building to this moment, the practical wisdom that Jung offered for empaths who want to thrive, not just survive. Step 1. Establish energetic boundaries. The first and most crucial step is learning to create what Jung called psychic boundaries. This doesn't mean becoming cold, closed off, or losing your empathic ability. It means developing a conscious filter that allows you to feel compassion for others without absorbing their pain as if it were your own. Jung taught a powerful visualization technique. Imagine your aura, your energy field, as having a semi-permeable membrane. You can consciously adjust this membrane to let certain energies in while keeping others out. Before entering any situation where you'll be around intense emotions, take a moment. Close your eyes. Visualize a protective boundary of light around your body. This isn't about fear or defense, it's about conscious choice. Say to yourself, I can be present and compassionate without taking on what isn't mine. This simple practice, done consistently, can dramatically change your experience as an empath. Step 2. Daily energetic cleansing. Jung was a strong advocate for what he called psychological hygiene, practices that clear accumulated emotional debris. For empaths, this isn't optional. It's essential. This could include spending time in nature, especially near water. Jung believed water had natural cleansing properties for the psyche, taking salt baths while consciously releasing energy that isn't yours. Practicing breath work to clear your nervous system. Journaling to separate your emotions from those you've absorbed. Meditation focused on grounding and centering. Jung recommended that empaths develop a daily ritual, even just 10 to 15 minutes, dedicated to energetic cleansing. He compared it to washing your hands after working in the garden. You wouldn't go to bed with dirty hands. Why would you go to bed with a psyche full of other people's emotional dirt? Step 3. Learn to distinguish between intuition and absorption. This is subtle but crucial. Jung taught empaths to ask themselves a key question whenever they feel a strong emotion. Is this mine? If you suddenly feel anxious, sad, or angry, stop and investigate. Did this feeling arise from your own thoughts and experiences? Or did it appear out of nowhere, after being around someone, or in a particular environment? If it's the latter, you've likely absorbed it from outside yourself. Once you've identified that an emotion isn't yours, you can consciously release it. You can say, either out loud or internally, this isn't mine. I release it with compassion, and I return it to its source, transformed into light. This practice of discernment is what separates empaths who are overwhelmed by their gift from those who have mastered it. Step 4. Embrace solitude as sacred. Jung believed that empaths must fiercely protect their alone time, and they must reframe it mentally. Solitude isn't isolation, loneliness, or antisocial behavior. For empaths, solitude is medicine. It's how you remember who you are. It's how you recharge your batteries. It's how you maintain your sanity. Don't feel guilty about needing time alone. Don't apologize for it. Don't let others make you feel like there's something wrong with you for requiring it. Jung suggested that empaths should schedule solitude into their lives as religiously as they schedule work or social obligations. Block out time on your calendar labeled non-negotiable, anytime, and treat it with the same importance you would any other appointment. Step 5. Cultivate conscious empathy. Here's where Jung's approach becomes really sophisticated. He distinguished between unconscious empathy, automatically absorbing everything, and conscious empathy, choosing when and how deeply to connect. Unconscious empathy is exhausting and overwhelming. Conscious empathy is powerful and sustainable. To develop conscious empathy, practice this. Before engaging with someone who is in pain or crisis, take a moment to center yourself. Then consciously decide how much of yourself you're willing to give in this moment. You might think, I can hold space for this person for 15 minutes, and then I need to step back. Or, I can listen deeply right now, but I'm not taking responsibility for fixing their problem. This isn't selfishness. This is wisdom. You're no good to anyone if you're completely depleted. Conscious empathy allows you to help others sustainably, without destroying yourself in the process. Step 6. Find your tribe. Jung emphasized that empaths need community with other empaths. You need people who understand this experience, who don't think you're weird or too sensitive, who get it. He encouraged empaths to seek out others with this gift, whether through support groups, spiritual communities, or simply finding friends who share this trait. When empaths gather, something magical happens. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to defend your need for alone time or your sensitivity to harsh environments. You're finally among people who speak your language. Step 7. Channel your gift into purpose. Finally, Jung believed that empaths must find a way to channel their gift into meaningful work or creative expression. If you don't give this energy a constructive outlet, it will turn inward and become destructive. The empathic ability needs to flow through you, not stagnate within you. This might mean becoming a therapist, counselor, or coach, creating art that expresses deep emotional truths, volunteering with vulnerable populations, writing, teaching, or speaking about emotional wellness, working with animals or in nature conservation. Any profession or hobby where your ability to sense and understand others becomes an asset rather than a burden. The empath who has found their purpose transforms from a victim of their sensitivity into a vessel of healing for the world. When your empathic gift is aligned with your life purpose, everything changes. What once felt like a curse becomes your greatest strength. So we've journeyed deep into Carl Jung's understanding of this rare empathic ability, from its origins to its dangers to its highest expression. If you've made it this far in the video, and many of these concepts have resonated with you, there's a strong likelihood you're part of that 1%. You're one of the rare souls who carries this profound gift. And I want you to hear this. Your sensitivity is not a weakness. Your deep feeling is not a flaw. Your ability to sense what others cannot see is not something to be ashamed of or to suppress. It's a gift, a calling, a capacity for connection that this world desperately needs. But as we've explored, it's a gift that requires wisdom, boundaries, and self-knowledge to wield properly. Jung spent his entire career helping empaths understand that they don't have to choose between being sensitive and being strong. You can be both. In fact, you must be both. The journey of the empath is the journey of individuation, becoming your authentic self while honoring your ability to connect deeply with others. It's learning to say no without guilt. It's choosing yourself sometimes, even when others need you. It's understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup. If you found value in this deep dive into Jung's work on empathy, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Are you part of the 1%? Which signs resonated most with you? What has your journey as an empath been like? And if you want more content exploring the depths of psychology, consciousness, and the human experience, Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're building a community of deep thinkers and sensitive souls here, and I'd love for you to be part of it. I also want to recommend some resources for your continued journey. Jung's books, Man and His Symbols and The Undiscovered Self, offer profound insights into consciousness and empathy. Consider working with a therapist, trained in Jungian analysis if you're struggling with your empathic abilities. Join online communities of empaths where you can share experiences and strategies. Remember, you were given this gift for a reason. The world needs your sensitivity, your depth, your ability to feel what others cannot. But the world also needs you healthy, boundaried, and thriving. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And for you, part of who you truly are is an empath. Not despite your sensitivity, but because of it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, take care of yourselves, honor your gifts, and remember, you're not alone on this journey.